Ladies and gents, Six Figs here from YouTube. In today's video, we've got some important guests, Dan Landry and William Laurent. Thank you for joining us. We are going to be talking about this situation with Ethereum, which Dan has uncovered something very unusual. So thanks again for joining us, guys. If you guys could go ahead and introduce yourselves, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be back on the show, as always. And today we're going to talk about some interesting things, but I wanted to invite one of the FastBlocks writers to the show, our own Dan Landry, who, as you said, has uncovered something very, I would say, shady with the Ethereum Foundation and staking.
Yeah, my name's Dan Landry. I write for FastBlocks, but kind of interested in all things crypto. I'm relatively new to the space, probably only since I'd say 2021, so relatively new. But yeah, I mean, Will and I were just kind of talking about, I forget, what was it, Will? I think we were just talking about staking in general, like wasn't even ETH, and then it just kind of, what led us to this, would you say?
Yeah, it was actually triggered. I was on Binance and I have some ETH that I was just sitting around, and I was like, well, gosh, I should probably stake this and get the 6% that Binance keeps advertising and sending me emails every day. And when I went to stake it, started the process, a warning popped up from Binance and said, just so you know, FYI, blah, blah. And it had mentioned that they were very unclear when you would be able to get your ETH back because of what was going on with the Shanghai, with the merge and the Shanghai upgrade. So I started digging around a little bit. At the same time, Dan was pinging me about some ideas of pieces that he thought would be good for FastBlocks, and we started to put our heads together and said, wow, this is bigger than we thought. And then Dan went out and found the bombshell of the piece, which was Ethereum slyly and shadily updating their website about the Shanghai upgrade.
Yeah, like I thought it was kind of weird. Because I've looked into ETH staking. I'm not a big ETH guy, but I've been involved in looking at a lot of things. And when I looked at their website, I thought, man, I thought it said 6 to 12 months somewhere, and I just couldn't find it. And I'm one of those people who just kind of obsessively digs. And then I was like, I wonder if the Wayback Machine has it. And then sure enough, literally the day before the merge, it still said 6 to 12 months. And then now it says nothing. It just says will be available once Shanghai update is finalized or something along those lines. So it's kind of, I don't know, we found it kind of weird that they would, I would say sneakily, maybe just kind of hush update it without really telling anyone. And it does seem like many people are talking about this. I saw one guy on Twitter mention it, and it might have got mentioned in one article, but nobody really seems to be talking about this. And I mean, we're in crypto winter, guys. Like if your ETH is stuck and you just have to watch it just go down and down and down in value, and you can't do anything about it, that must be brutal.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing too. As we were, even before Dan had stumbled on this issue of them surreptitiously changing their website, we were on Google and on crypto Twitter searching. Like even if you would go in and search a Shanghai upgrade, very, very few people were even talking about it, even not in this context of staking. It was almost like it wasn't even happening, as opposed to what's been 10 days since the merge actually happened, which was trending on Twitter. It was everywhere. And now it was almost nothing, which I still find very curious.
Yeah, that is interesting. And to just kind of piggyback off what you guys are saying, and they removed this information from their website. And when we start talking about this ETH staking and how there is no way to unlock these stake tokens, like we've all heard of like this new term that's been thrown around the last 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months, the soul-bound NFTs, stuff like that. This is just kind of like giving me vibes. Are Ethereum tokens that get staked now some sort of soul-bound token where you'll never be able to unstake it? Like, without this clear plan of, when Shanghai is actually going to drop on the network, like, man, it could be absolutely years before anybody could withdraw any of this.
Right. And I think it went from Dan, what did it say before? 6 to 12 months. And now it says nothing. So it is looking like it could be years.
And just like when they go ahead and remove that, so it said 6 to 12 months. Now is it like infinity? Like it just, it's man.
And when you look into it, it's not just that. They've always had the plan for ETH that you can't, like, let's say they enabled withdrawals today. Well, they can't all unstake at once. ETH actually has it baked into the protocol that there is a set amount of people who can unstake per epoch or per amount of blocks. So I forget how many validators there are, but somebody said, let's say that everyone in the absolute worst case scenario wanted to unstake 100% of all staked ETH. It would literally take a year for everybody to unstake, because there's that many validators and there's only so many who can unstake. Obviously, I don't think ETH is going to zero. I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't know. Let's say, I don't know, the Fed starts saying we're going to increase rates another 1%, and then the market tanks. Well, even if you wanted to unstake and kind of try and sell before it really loses a lot of value, you kind of just have to ride it at that point, because it really sucks. So I think if you're going to stake an ETH, you really have to be long on ETH. Otherwise, if you're looking to just sell the news, I got news for you. It's not going to be very good.
Yeah. And to preface this discussion, I am by no means a Bitcoin maximalist or an ETH butter. A lot of my NFTs that I own and I have created have been on the Ethereum chain. I do have Ethereum, so this has affected me personally as well. I'm a little bit concerned, and I did notice. I think in the last 48 hours, it looks like ETH has come back a little bit today, but it really did after that shenanigans with the website. It continued. ETH continued its free fall. So this is not just the implications here are not just for staking, right? It's for like we're saying the whole ecosystem in general, right? From play to earn gaming to NFTs to anything that's built on chain. I'm very concerned.
And I'm just trying to think about like what would be an acceptable amount of time that somebody would stake their ETH for. Like, hey, I'm going to stake this. How long would I absolutely have to wait before I can unstake this ETH?
With some other Ethereum-based tokens that I have staked, I think the staking period is 2 years, and then there's a dissolve period, right? So after you stake those and you can claim the rewards, but you can't claim the rewards until 2 years after, right? So it's a whole process of 4 years, but that to me that would be almost the max as far as myself.
I think personally it doesn't really matter what the duration is. For me, the thing is when it's a quantifiable thing, where right now you don't know if it's going to be 6 months, a year, 2 years. You really don't know, and it's always variable. Whereas if you stake, I don't know, even like I don't stake Sol, but apparently if you stake Sol, it's a set amount of time after you unstake before you get it back. Same thing with Polkadot, same thing with Cosmos. So I think it would just be better if it was a known quantity, right? I think then you can at least plan for it and you know what you're getting into. And I feel like, I will say this, ETH at no point has ever said that it would be unlocked when the merge happened. They were very clear about that it was not going to be unlocked right away, that Shanghai need to happen. So I don't want it to sound like I'm crapping on ETH or something like that. Like they were pretty clear. It's just the time frame seems to be a bit iffy.
Yeah, I agree. It would definitely help if they had that like set in stone where you could just say, okay, this is like a 5-year commitment, 10-year commitment, whatever. That would be sweet. But just to kind of have your livelihood out there in limbo, like in the hands of really unknown developers in some cases, like that kind of freaks me out a little bit. I'll be honest with you. Like,
Yeah, unknown. There's been a lot of ambiguity. Then since the merge, there's been several different forks of Ethereum, and a lot of battles around that too. So it is a very turbulent time to be a holder of ETH right now.
Yeah, and if you have it on an exchange and you can't get it off that exchange, that puts you at. I mean, I don't want to bang the drum of doom, but there are some concerns with those exchanges being centralized entities. And for example, we wrote an article about this the other week, Will, where we talked about let's look at Tornado Cash. A lot of these places, they instantly blacklisted addresses, instantly put in these measures, and then Ethereum, it was proof of work. You can't censor the network; it was decentralized. But now you have, I don't know what the percentage is, but a good percentage of blocks being essentially validated by a select few amounts of validators. And even if ETH users can slash a misbehaving validator who's trying to censor, then you know what that means? It means you just slashed people who have invested in exchanges and they can't unstake it. So now you have these, I don't know if you want to say innocent, but innocent users who lose their ETH because of it. Is it likely to happen? Probably not, but it could. We saw how
Right.
fast stablecoin issuers imposed sanctions right away, like almost enthusiastically, you could say.
Yeah, it really ties in, Dan, to the article I wrote earlier, a few days earlier on Amazon Web Services, right? AWS. And when you look at the research, not only is these validators, the powers is centered in a handful of validators, the fact that it's also centered in certain geographic regions, right? And those regions may impact decisions of censorship or blacklisting. So yeah, it gets really scary, I think, pretty quickly. And the fact that so much of Ethereum does still run on AWS or one of the other four big providers, which would be Google, and there's a few others that I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. And I mean, when we start talking about like all this Amazon web server, all these applications being run through Amazon Web Services, like that's just scary in itself to think about. If something happens there with Amazon or their web services, all of a sudden it just this trickle down effect of disaster and catastrophe that happens, especially if some of these validators are operating off Amazon Web Services. These fluxes of power could just swing wildly.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
AWS does go down. It has gone down. It happens not that frequently, but it happens enough that there have been large impacts to major applications that were running on AWS that affected millions of users. Now, I don't know how that necessarily would translate into the blockchain world with the different levels of fault tolerance and different copies of the ledger distributed all around, but I that's something that bears looking into a little bit more.
Yeah, and regulators are definitely noticing that too, because I think I've seen that regulators are now using that as an excuse for saying, well, a lot of these are validated in the US, so US regulators should have a say in trying to regulate the space. And I mean, we all know what that means. It means bad news because they're going
Right.
to go down with an iron fist, not understanding the space, trying to put in regulations for another, trying to put, I don't know, stock regulations in place on crypto projects, which, it's trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah, and a plurality of the validators for ETH were actually in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That much concentration is in the United States. I
Yeah.
would expect it to be a little bit more decentralized, I guess, throughout the world. I don't know about like China or some of those bigger techie countries. But yeah, 40% seems high for the US or anywhere, I guess I should say. But I'm not sure how those breakdowns look across the world. Let's see. I think we've pretty much covered this story pretty good. It is very, very interesting to see what the Ethereum Foundation has done by removing this language from their webpage and things like that. And it'll be interesting to see what comes of this, and if and when people will be able to unlock their Ethereum. Because I mean, what is the earn rate? 4% a year or
I
something
think
like
it depends where you stake. If you stake at exchanges, might be higher, but yeah, right now ETH Foundation says 4.1.
Okay.
Yeah, Binance was paying out 6% APY, I believe.
Wow. And I mean, yeah, just kind of piggyback off what you guys were saying earlier. Like, what happens if you stake all your ETH and Binance gets, Binance goes out of business or something like that? You lose it all. But you might not have been able to access the rewards and stuff like that in the first place with this kind of crazy system that the Ethereum Foundation has, not even being able to retrieve your rewards or your ETH from from the staking pools and stuff like that.
Well, like we were talking
crazy.
about, like we were talking about before the show, is look what Celsius was the case study for that, right? In that everybody was staking with Celsius and earning these just incredibly outsized staking rewards. And when Celsius went under, we see what happened. Now they might get some of their money back, but it's probably going to be pennies on the dollar. But yeah, at least with Celsius also is that there were whispers that something was up, that you sort of saw things coming. So if a big exchange like Coinbase or Binance was starting to go down, you might have some time to react and sell your ETH into the market and take that money as USD and take it off the exchange. But if you are locked up in your staking of ETH, then good luck.
Well, thank you guys for coming on the show today to talk about this important issue. And I will link their socials in the comments and the pinned description, along with some of the articles that were mentioned in this video. They are great reads. So thanks, gentlemen, for being here once again. We'll see you guys all on the next video.